Welcome back. As promised, I'm joined now by the guys from Feels Like 98. I only have one today. Hopefully, at some point we can do a big, super, mega podcast. But I don't even know what this guy's name is. We interact on Twitter a lot, so I'll let him introduce himself, give as much of you information as you got to you guys as he wants, and then we'll get going.
Excellent. Listen, I have a lot of names given to me by various people. Robtimus Prime, Fake Rob Lewis, Quadzilla, Lucius Left Foot, Daddy Fat Sack. Go ahead.
I like Quadrilicious.
No, that'll work. You can call me whatever. This is your show, and I'm here to try to entertain and answer some questions and have a good time. So I'll let you pick.
Well, Feels Like 98, if you're not familiar, is a Vols fan site. 98 was the last time that the ball. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say it was the last time the Vols were really any good. It was the year they won the national championship. I actually have on my wall, as we're sitting here doing this interview, the 1997 SEC champions poster. I don't have the 98 poster. I wish I did. I'll have to get on that. But I'm a Tennessee alum, and my room is filled with Tennessee paraphernalia. And then we talk a lot about Peyton Manning on this show, so you guys know that. We'll start with a Tennessee football update. Today, this week has been, the National Signing Day has been big out there on social media, and obviously it's, for college football fans, it's kind of like Christmas, so to speak. I know some guys commit early and you know who you're getting, but some guys do like to draw it out and that drama and everything. So give us a rundown. First of all, let's talk about who's returning, who's bolted, who's going for the green fields of the NFL or elsewhere, and then we'll talk about the biggest gets and the biggest misses for this year's class.
Well, yeah, and a Merry Beastmas to all of you guys. It's a great day for college football fans, signing day, especially for Tennessee. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. Typically, our class is wrapped up by signing day, and it's relatively boring with, maybe a guy here or there. This year was a little bit different as to, we had 3 or 4 guys that we were after that were going to wait until the day and commit. And I think we had quite the haul. As for who's leaving, I mean, you've got a few guys that'll hurt. Obviously, the big guys came back in Kamara, Cam Sutton, and my favorite player, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. And that's like, in my opinion, that's like getting 3 5-stars back. I know that's a little bit of coach speak and a little cliche, but to get those 3 back, it's imperative for next year. And with a new defensive coordinator coming in, I cannot be. And I'm a homer, but I cannot be more excited about next year. I think with that comes a lot of pressure, but I think the team's prepared for it. I like the attitude. I like kind of how they're embracing it. So I think in terms of what we've lost and what we've got coming back, it's definitely a net gain for Tennessee this year.
Tennessee is trading one Marquise for another. How do you like that swap out?
Say it again?
Tennessee is trading one Marquise for another. How do you like the swap out?
Oh, I'm fine with it. Listen, I think that I think what Butch Jones has done in, he's going into year 4. Is amazing. I think we as fans get impatient, have lofty expectations because of our past. But I think it's really important to be cognizant and aware of where we have been the last 6 or 7 years, and it's which is not very good. It's not like a basketball program where one player can change the entire team. You have to build. You have to have a healthy amount of game changers, but you also have to have depth. And I think we've seen that even last year with blowing a lead to Oklahoma, losing late to Florida. Next year I really don't see us having a we ran out of gas excuse. So I think it's make or break time.
I haven't looked at the rankings lately. The last time, this was probably about a week or so ago. Tennessee was respectably in the upper echelon of the recruiting classes, particularly in the SEC. There's no question but that Butch Jones is a good recruiter and that he has improved the Jimmies and Joes, as you probably know and as everyone who listens to my podcast knows. Where I criticize Butch Jones is on the X's and O's. Give us your thoughts on that, and what do you expect out of Butch Jones in Tennessee, the Tennessee football program, in 2016?
Well, it's a really good point. And the people that doubt Butch Jones in the off season are fairly ignorant, in my opinion, because there's one thing he's proven he can do, and that is bring the players that are required to get back to where we all want to be. I do think that he is sometimes criticized a little too much because I think all coaches make in-game mistakes. I think the really good ones have enough talent to overcome that. Is he the best X's and O's coach in the SEC? Absolutely not. Is he at a tier that is good enough if he has the proper talent? Absolutely.
I don't disagree with that, but at some point, Tennessee has to win the East.
Absolutely. Well, at some point it needs to be 2016. I will be singing a far different tune. Barring just mass crippling injuries, there really is no excuse this year. It's a favorable schedule. I've said this. I think this is my 9th year in a row. This is the year we beat Florida. I do not believe that Alabama on paper is better than us. It does come at a tough stretch. We do have a tough stretch. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I believe we have some form of at A&M, at Georgia, and then come back to Alabama. That's a tough little stretch. But you win the games early, you create some momentum, you beat Florida, you get a real loud atmosphere when Alabama comes to Knoxville. I think 10 wins is the basement in terms of what I would deem acceptable. Anything after that's really nice. I think once you're in the after 10 wins, it's kind of a crapshoot as to whether you get in the playoff or not. You've seen one-loss teams get in. I could see a scenario in which 2-loss teams get in. Living up here in Ohio, I can tell you Ohio State's not going to be in the conversation. I think they're ranked still relatively high, which I don't think anybody up here even agrees with because of how many players they've lost and the rebuilding project that Urban Meyer now has. So I think that's one team that's out of the equation. Obviously, you've got Michigan, Harbaugh loaded up this year. But if there was a time for Tennessee to come in and get in the playoffs, this is the year.
This is the stretch that we're talking about. They have Florida, Georgia, A&M, Alabama, and then they finish that stretch with South Carolina. I'm curious to see what Will Muschamp does with the Gamecocks in his first year. It is a tough schedule.
You may kind of spoil that one for you.
Sure.
We're going to beat the hell out of them. They're terrible.
I thought it was an odd hire. I did.
It was a very confusing hire. I think if you looked at who was out there, I would have gone as hard as I could at Tom Herman. I really think that guy is going to be a star. And I think he's kind of unique in that he did stay at Houston, where most coaches bolt as soon as they get some hype around them. He was obviously the offensive coordinator up here at Ohio State, and I think you saw Ohio State's offense suffer when he left. And he's an outstanding coach, going to do great things. But there are also a couple of other really good coaches out there, and the Will Muschamp, I just don't get it. I don't even think he was that great at Auburn when he went back to be a defensive coordinator. Obviously, he was a failure at Florida. He's got rumors of attitude problems. I mean, I think we've all seen the videos of him on the sidelines and stuff. And I think he kind of Peter principled out. I think defensive coordinators is dealing, but I mean, we'll see. I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I don't know between that option and sticking with Sean Elliott. They shouldn't have just stuck with Sean Elliott. We'll see how that pans out. We're not going to talk to. I want to get your way too early prediction since we're talking about it. Who wins the East and who wins the West in the SEC?
I'll go Tennessee, and then in the West, goodness, I'm going to go LSU.
Okay. Never count out Les Miles. Never count him out, baby.
No, and listen, those guys breed talent down there, and they seem to be somewhat of a cyclical program in terms of when they win the West, and I think their time's about up. I think the West is going to be a dogfight this year. I think Auburn's going to be improved. I do think Gus Malzahn's a good coach. I think they had a bad year, obviously, but they have a ton of talent. That's something that's correctable. And I'm probably dumb for discounting Alabama. I just hate them, so it's really hard for me to even.
I wouldn't say that you're dumb. At some point they're due. And I thought that we might see it. I mean, this past, you just never know. It's kind of wild. What do you make of Ole Miss and Mississippi State? What's going on down there and in that state?
That is such the Ole Miss dynamic is so interesting because historically, outside of a few stretches, they haven't been a very relative program. But what Hugh Freeze, as much as I make fun of him on Twitter because we take the recruits we want from him, he's done a fantastic job of getting talent there. Nobody can really deny that. I do think his time to be uber successful, and I guess what that would be like winning the SEC. I think that time is running out. I think you can only recruit so well for so long and not really win an SEC title before that shine sort of wears off. Yeah. But to be honest, I'm fairly uneducated as to what they have coming back. I just always know they, have a great defense and lose 2 or 3 games a year. I mean, that's just kind of what they do. And so I don't really see it changing.
I think that's a great way to put it. By the way, Tennessee, per Rivals, Tennessee finished 6th in the SEC in recruiting rankings, which, as we see year after year after year, the stars don't matter as long as you perform. And you see the NFL is replete with guys who are 2-star players.
Well, yeah, but to caveat that, we did take a limited number this year. We could only take, I believe, it's 20 or 21. And I think our average star rating lines up with pretty much everyone else in the SEC, save maybe Alabama. And that obviously leaves next year could be, or is supposed to be, just an absolutely incredible class. And I think it's going to get kicked off pretty quick with a gentleman by the name of Gibbs, a defensive back committing probably in the next month or so to kind of springboard that class. He's a sure 5-star, maybe the best defensive back we've had here in a while, or could have here in a while. I think the 2017 class is going to be, it's going to mirror last year's and probably have another game changer or two in it. So I think that, this class obviously filled needs. And then you do have a few stars. I think Bird is probably the best, in my opinion, is probably the best true football player that we recruited this year and flipped from Miami. If you look at the All-American game, he was the best player there, and it wasn't close. Congo obviously is massive just because I think we'll have the best defensive line in the country next year, and now it's just one player deeper. So I think all in all, with the limited number that we could take, I think Butch Jones did about as – we may have taken a player or two a little too early that we might wish we could have had those spots come, January. But all in all, I think he did a really good job yet again this year.
I agree with that. Before we talk a little bit about the basketball program, both men and women, I want to ask you, first of all, I had an opportunity to scout Josh Dobbs with Matt Waldman. We're going to tweet out the link to that. Cool. As we're playing this discussion on air on Friday. We're recording this, by the way, on Wednesday afternoon, and I'm so happy that we're finally able to do this. And I hope that you'll come back, because I definitely want to talk to you about the elections. We're not going to get a chance to do that today. What do you think of Josh Dobbs? And then we're going to talk about what position groups to watch in 2016.
So I think that Dobbs, obviously, the glaring issue is his accuracy. I think it's been well discussed, especially the slant pattern. It seems to have a little trouble with hitting the guy in stride. Receivers have to adjust and make catches, and that kind of can handicap them in terms of additional yards after a catch. But you look at the things he does well, and I think he's such a perfect fit for this offense where, you've got Jalen Hurd, you have Alvin Kamara, you have a stable of really good receivers. Next year you're going to have a really good offensive line, a really good young offensive line, and he's another threat to take the ball and run. It's really hard for a defense, in my opinion, to plan for 3 different scenarios. The handoff to the running back or a pass, okay. But then when you have a quarterback who, he never seems to get hit hard, he never seems to get hit hard and fumble. He always seems to get extra yards after contact. Seems very slippery. I think he's as quick, and you don't even think he doesn't even look like he would be a very fast guy, and I think he's kind of sneaky fast.
He's smooth that way, just like Colin Kaepernick was during his when he was doing so well.
That's a fair comparison. I'm a really big Josh Dobbs guy. Obviously, what I think he needs to work on in the offseason is getting with his receivers and working on his accuracy issues. I do think that a lot of that may have to do with some receivers. The receivers have to step up next year. We have 4 and 5 stars across the field, and the reason we lost to Florida is we couldn't beat press coverage. And if you have 4 and 5 star receivers and can't beat press coverage, to me, and I'm, I don't want to be critical this time of year. To me, that's a coaching issue. And they're obviously very athletic, very successful in high school, very highly thought of by every scout in America. They have to beat press coverage.
Yeah. When Matt and I sat down to watch Josh Dobbs, and we watched the Oklahoma game, it was and that was early in the season. He did get better as the season went on, and the receivers got better, but there were clearly some miscues between Josh Dobbs and his receivers. Some of the passes that he wasn't able to complete, it definitely looked like the receiver wasn't running through his routes correctly and doing the things that a very good college receiver should do to help his quarterback. So just throwing that out there. A position group. What position group are you most excited about, and the one that you think fans should watch?
I think our defensive front seven will be like nothing I've seen in my 30 years on earth. I think it is the best front seven in college football. I think we can rotate at every position on the defensive line and really not miss a step in terms of talent. I think we're deep and good at linebacker. You know what? I'm just most excited to see our defense. It's hard to even single out a position group. You've got Bob Shoop coming in, who has all kinds of exotic blitz packages. Believes in bringing pressure to the quarterback, making the offense, forcing the offense to make a bad decision. So I think that has to be absolutely the what to keep an eye on. Obviously, our offense, I think we have two Heisman candidates in Josh Dobbs and Jalen Hurd. That's great. We know what we have there, but I'm an old school guy. I love defense. I love low scoring games. I love blitzing. I love turning the ball over, and I think you're going to see a lot of that next year.
I'm the same way. I hope that you'll come back and we can talk about Jalen Hurd in more detail. But I want to talk to you about the Baller Vols. First of all, the Lady Vols. And I hope that you'll come back so that we can talk about the patch and the name change and all of that. But first of all, the Lady Vols are still in the top 25. I think they're ranked like 23, something like that. But they're underperforming, in my opinion. Do you agree with that or not?
Well, I'll answer that like this. I hope to get off of this podcast, log on to Twitter, and find that Holly has been relieved of her duties. And I
was going to ask you how long she had left.
Hopefully before the sun goes down. But the thing is, I joke a lot about women's basketball on Twitter, and my Twitter account's never to be taken seriously. It's about entertainment, dialogue, and just having fun.
Uh-oh. Did I lose you? I think we may have lost Mr. Quadrilicious. All right.
And I feel like they still have talent, but it's just boring. Like I don't care anymore. Like when you take a sport that's already, sort of hemorrhaging money, it better be entertaining or it better win. And now I think you're reaching kind of the point where these high school recruits really don't look at, Tennessee as that power that they used to, and Summit would just bring in just loads and loads of talent every year. Now it's, I think, at least in looking at the top 25 and stuff, there's a lot of teams that were not, important or were not good back when I was younger. And so I think as that's spread out, it's vital to, kind of keep the program going. And Holly's done a very poor job of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. We'll talk a little bit about that in another segment. Rick Barnes and the Baller Vols, what are your thoughts there?
I love Rick. I said, a few times this year, I think that this year, I hate to say year zero because it's so cliche and everybody hates hearing it, but he was left with kind of a pieced-together roster with a couple good players, was able to go and get a couple young guys. I do think he has a rising star in Schofield. He reminds me very much of a young Draymond Green. I'm really big on his class coming in next year. I love the Parker kid. You get Lamonte Turner back, which is like another recruit. He was ineligible this year. You get Bones' brother, who's a good scorer. I think if fans are patient, I think they will be, because we sat through, Conzo Martin underachieving. You sat through Donnie Tyndall, who I still think is a fantastic basketball coach, and if he can kind of sort some things out, I think he'll be very successful wherever he ends up. So I think the patience is there. Obviously, last night goes a long way, just to show that, Rick Barnes, he didn't take Texas to, 17 or 18 out of 19 NCAA tournaments in his tenure there for no reason.
Yeah, he's definitely got a pedigree and a resume. And I don't disagree with you about Donnie Tyndall. I was critical of the hire simply because I felt like it was Bruce Pearl light, and I was like, what is Tennessee doing? And it ended as predictably as I did predict with what happened there. So, nothing against him. I agree. I think he's a great basketball coach. It just didn't make sense for where Tennessee was, where they had been.
No, and if you were going to go hire a Bruce Pearl, then why not just go back and hire Bruce Pearl?
Yeah, right.
I think, again, Donnie, you could see, again, he was in a situation similar to Rick Barnes. He got here in the middle of a recruiting period, had very limited time to piece together a team, he went and got you some talent. I mean, you look at the roster, and most of those players that are out there getting it done came from Donnie Tyndall, and he did that in 6 weeks. So I can only imagine if he was given a few recruiting cycles, what he would be able to do here. I mean, you look at like a Kevin Punter, the dude's a stud, and Donnie went and found him. So I'm big on Donnie Tyndall. I certainly hope that some of the allegations against him aren't true, because they read pretty bad. And from my experience interaction with him, he seems to be a really good guy. He seems to breathe basketball, and that's my first love is basketball. So we kind of hit it off and like to talk X's and others a lot. So I wish I could put the best for him, but Barnes is success here. I think he's got 5.
I like the hire. I think it was a great hire. It's fantastic. It's great timing for Tennessee.
He'll leave it a lot. He'll leave the program 10 times better than where he found it, and it'll be a very, very attractive job by the time he leaves it.
Yes. And they needed that stability, and I completely agree with all of that. Before, I know you've got to go real quick. Peyton Manning, Super Bowl, does he have one more left in him?
So everybody gets stuck on Manning, Cam Newton, and rightfully so. Cam Newton's had an incredible year, seems to be an incredibly likable person, which it matters a lot to me. Like, he seems just like a good dude who has fun, and I really appreciate that. If Peyton wasn't there, I'd be pulling for him harder than anyone. Yeah. But what people don't talk about is that Carolina's like a fantastic team, top to bottom. Like, they are just they do not have a weakness. They're a very fun team to watch. They play physical. I don't know. I mean, I want to say yes, but no, I don't think so. I think Carolina wins by a couple scores, and Cam Newton's kind of ushered in as one of the next big things in the NFL, and I think it's still a great story for Peyton Manning to get to go again. To beat New England, and kind of come back from being benched in the kind of the controversy, and then you've got people writing HGH stories against him, and it's been a really interesting year for Peyton. I'm really excited to see what he does when he leaves, but I hope he does hang up after this year. I saw the LA rumor, and I don't want.
He's not going to do that. If Peyton does anything, and I started this rumor a long time ago. Peyton Manning as the Tennessee athletic director. Make it happen. We're going to make it happen.
Listen, get him in Knoxville. I don't care what capacity it's in. Just get him in Orange. The man, I mean, he loves Tennessee. He's one of the very few players that, continues to give to his university, always comes back. It's very rare to see players can, do that all the time. Like, Tom Brady came back for the Michigan recruiting thing. I never hear about Tom Brady going back to Michigan. Manning comes back every year. He's on the sideline for games. The man needs to be in Orange.
Yeah, well, in all fairness, though, Tom Brady wasn't even the starting quarterback for Michigan. So,
that's fair.
That's fair. And Peyton was Tennessee football for so long. It was such a pleasure. I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. I know that you have to run. You've got other obligations. Tell everybody where to find you on social media, find the website, and all of that.
Listen, that feels like 98's where we are. We're going to do some podcasts ourselves, but Sharona, please let me come back, and we'll talk about the Donald.
I hope so.
And I'm sure we'll be able to talk a little post Super Bowl stuff. So anytime, I really appreciate it.
I promise. Even though I'm not a fan of the Donald, I ain't gonna cook you and eat you.
Hey, listen. The thing about politics, real quick, to me, it's just another topic. I don't judge people off of what they feel. Politics is based off of life experiences, where you've been, what's important to you. But it's just, I mean, it's like religion, anything else. I don't understand why it's such a hot topic. It's just something I enjoy discussing. And I mean, listen. Hillary Clinton wins, and my life really doesn't change a ton anyway. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just something that it's entertaining. So
and I completely agree, and I agree with your assessment of social media as well. It was a lot of fun. Thanks again, and we'll do it again soon.
Go Vols.
All right, bye-bye.